Okay, we're down to the stretch of things. I just realized that 6 teams make the playoffs in this league. I always forget, so it's a lot more wide open than I thought. I'm not a proponent of 6 teams out of 10 make the playoffs, but that's what we have here, and it's still going to be a battle. And I do like that every team in a playoff spot has a winning record. The reason I don't like 6 out of 10 teams is losing records should not make the playoffs. So my fingers are crossed that that's not going to happen, but it absolutely could. So let's talk about where we're at right now after talking about the trades that were made this past week. So the first trade was between TBD, which is a team that is holding on to that final playoff spot, against Team The Prophet, who I respect that they're making trades. The issue with Team The Prophet making trades is that they're mathematically eliminated. So there's just so much scrutiny if you don't make a good trade that it's like, why did you do that? But anyway, I respect that you're staying engaged. And fortunately for you, it was not a bad trade. I absolutely think the winner of the trade was TBD. TBD did the exact move he should have done, trying to make a spot, getting a top-tier guy like A.J. Brown, who's been cold, but this is a buy low value. Julio, we don't even know how much he's going to play the rest of the season. Tennessee, without Derrick Henry, does need a pass first. A.J. Brown's been banged up. Assuming he's going to be healthy, though, he's a really good option through the rest of the season. And who do you lose? You lose Kirk, who is a fine option, but you don't want to have to play him if you're making a playoff run. That's not a playoff team starter. Jalen Waddle, similar thing. Solid, but it's going to be inconsistent. Not a great passing offense. You don't want to rely on him. And Damian Harris, who is a solid option, obviously the main guy in this trade that you're giving away. But with Stevenson coming up and clearly, in my eyes, being the better back, Damian Harris will continue to be the starting running back, most likely, because they probably aren't going to shift things from their experienced and reliable running back. His share is going to continue to drop, in my opinion, be more like a 60-40, 55-45 even. I'm just making numbers up, split. And for that reason, if I'm looking at this trade basically like Damian Harris for A.J. Brown, TBD definitely gets the win. So good trade for you, Team The Prophet. I understand since you were so thin. Looking at Crucifier versus the Plague, straight up, Dallas Goedert for Chase Claypool. This is a pretty interesting trade. It totally depends on team need. We could talk more about it when we see the specific teams. I personally think Goddard is more valuable. Claypool is a good red zone target. I honestly expect them to get similar point totals through the rest of the season, but Goddard's a tight end. So that makes him more of a value since you're getting it more points over replacement. So I will say Crucifier probably won this trade. With that being said, let's talk about last week's matchups. A lot of playoff implications. First off, Team Glory Hole, the team we've been up really since maybe week 2. It became clear that this was the best team in the league, and they continue to do just that. Top points yet again. This is the most dominant team out of any of the leagues I'm recapping. The most dominant team is Team Glory Hole. There's absolutely not even having close games anymore. 185 to 101. This is all with Dak Prescott getting him 0 points. Just shows how absolutely dominant the rest of his team is. Debo continues to dominate. Jefferson's immaculate. Chubb looks fantastic. Chase not even a great game, and you still get great points from him. Mark Andrews, Terry McLaurin. There's no weak spots on this team. I mean, you did have to play Deontay Foreman, who probably isn't going to be someone you're going to want to play the rest of the season, but you have so many options that I'm not concerned about it at all. You're deeper at wide receiver. This is a team that if you don't have faith in Miles Sanders or Alex Collins, this is a team that technically could make a deal for a running back. You have the depth to do it. That's the only change I would make if I'm Glory Hole, but you're probably not super threatened no matter what. But please, everybody remember, fantasy is so much luck. And a team like this that's so dominant could easily have an off week in the playoffs and lose. You only needed to win 2 games, though, with the bye you're going to have upcoming to win it all. So I'm not too concerned about you. Team The Plague, absolutely devastating win, given the fact that you are now looking up in the standings. El Professor now in 9th place, 2 games behind that playoff spot. It's tough to envision a world where you can make a comeback with 3 games remaining, but definitely crazier things have happened. I'm assuming the tiebreaker in this league is points 4. You're sitting at 1,400 points, so you probably deserve to be in that spot because that is second least points in the entire league, and you are far behind all other teams. So you're going to need to basically make a 3-game comeback here. There are a lot of teams in the mix. People could tank, but probably not going to see 2-3 teams tank like that where you could oversee them. This might be a season ender for you, but you really never know. For your team, just an overall off week. I think the Russell Wilson injury is really what did you in. I mean, you obviously have a lot of talent at the top, but Russell Wilson with a awful last few weeks, you really needed him with Kyler Murray also going down. You would think this is a team with the most quarterback depth and the most quarterback points coming to them with an amazing starter and a very good backup, but both guys just absolutely doing nothing for you down the stretch and costing you right when you get McCaffrey fully healthy, when you could be a dominant team. You lose some games that you can't lose. This is also a really good case study for the rest of the league, how important, given the structure of your league, wide receivers are. This is a team that had a strong overall team, but not a strong wide receiver position. And that really is what cost them. If you have to strut out Tyler Boyd, Pittman, and Claypool, none of them are awful, but those are maybe the third best receivers on some strong teams in this league. You know that you're not going to be able to go far. So that really is a story of El Professor season, quarterback and wide receiver, which is a big part of a fantasy team because that's about half of it. Team Pain Train versus the Prophet. The Prophet, I want to applaud for having their best week in a long time. Really had a good enough week to win. So I do applaud the competitiveness. I cannot believe there's an 0-11 team. Again, the most dominant team in any league I'm reviewing, Team Glory Hole. The most dominated team is Team The Prophet. At this point, though, I'm rooting for them to get the win because they're putting up some good numbers. Can you believe Austin Eckler is on an 0-11 team? It's borderline not believable. But yeah, we will not dive too deep into this team. I guess we can say that trade for Jalen Waddle looks pretty good, getting 21.2 points, although I don't see that being consistent enough to bring you back value the rest of the season. Okay, Team Pain Train, very big win, 7-4, really securing a very, very good chance that you're going to see the playoffs, which is great news for you. Herbert, if he could perform like that, makes you a ultra competitive team because you are very strong at running back, and at wide receiver, you are okay. Well, you really don't have much depth at wide receiver, and I think this could end up being another case study, assuming this team doesn't win at all. With such a strong running back and quarterback core, this is an even better case study than the last team onto the importance of wide receivers because you have to start out a very average wide receiver group. So this is a better group than before. Godwin is a good option. Landry is an okay option, being really the only guy there. And Corey Davis is a bad option. You do have Mooney as your fourth receiver. I do wonder if Mooney becomes a starter, given Andy Dalton and a quarterback that could throw the ball. And Allen Robinson being hurt, Mooney does become a starter. So you could plug him in, bring Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the flex, and now your wide receiver group is a little bit less holding you back. I think that's the only recipe to get over the hump of having a weaker wide receiver group than a lot of the competitive teams at the top. But let's keep an eye on Pain Train because wide receiver could end up costing them, and that's going to be my prediction. I think they're a strong team that's just not going to be able to hang with teams at the top because of that wide receiver group. Anyway, next game, El Captain against Sons of Chaos. This was a massive game for playoff implications. One of the, I guess, 3 games. These final 3 games are really the ones that touch the playoffs the most. El Captain gets a gigantic win that probably will make a difference of who makes the playoffs over Sons of Chaos with a really good performance, putting up 182 points. I wonder why they got those points. I wonder how they got those points. Well, they have Jonathan Taylor on their team. 58 points. Everyone's talking about it in fantasy. I'm not going to add more noise to it. You would have, I think the important thing to highlight here is you would have won even with an average Jonathan Taylor game, even with a below average Jonathan Taylor game, because you won by 44 points. So all you needed from him was, I guess, 14 points. Wow, that's crazy. 58 points is insane. It really just hit me because you won by so much, but if he got you 13 points, which would be a fine week, you would have lost. That's crazy. But either way, you won by a good margin. The rest of your team also performed. James Conner's been massive for you with Chase Edmonds getting hurt. The only question here is what's his value once Edmonds comes back. But you're getting a lot of help back. You're getting Lamar Jackson back, which is fantastic. Van Jefferson could play a role for you down the stretch. And I think the most important thing here is that you don't want to be starting 2 tight ends. Pitts and Knox, it's not going to be a recipe for success. But I believe that Kyle Pitts will finish for the rest of the season a top 3 tight end. And I want you to remember my words on that. You know what, I need to keep taking notes on these calls because I always forget what calls I make. So, I believe that Pitts is going to be a top 3 tight end rest of season. Okay. And I don't believe you're going to need Knox. So does that mean you trade? Does that mean you keep him for a flex opportunity? I'm assuming flex opportunity. I don't know when the trade deadline is for this league. But I think with all this depth, there's enough for Team El Captain to work with to make a run and actually compete for a title. Again, underdog, you're playing against some top teams. But if Jonathan Taylor continues playing that way, nothing's holding you back. He's a new Derrick Henry, the guy who can make an okay team very good. Sons of Chaos is one of the more average teams in the league at this point. a lot of solid guys. I really think David Montgomery is going to pull a lot of points for you through the rest of the season. And if that happens, you do become competitive. But you kind of need that stud to break out for you because, again, Fournette's a solid option. Sure, I understand that the Bucs offense is better than I thought. Brady's solid quarterback option. Robinson's solid option. Tyreek's your stud. And then that's really it. One stud. If you want to compete against the top teams, you probably need more than one stud. Look at the team you're playing against. Jonathan Taylor, Devontae Adams alone get him about 100 points this week. You need that second guy. I think that's going to be David Montgomery. Let's see if he could cash in for you. If so, I think you could get that playoff spot. I think you can compete. If not, I do think you're going to be on the outside looking in. You do have a very solid team, but we're talking, can you compete for a title? And now you actually have to compete for a playoff spot. Speaking of competing for a playoff spot, the chairman with a must-win over TBD to tie in records in the standings. The chairman with a good week, with a very good week, would have actually lost some of the teams that we have been chatting about. But one of the top teams in the league for sure with Aaron Jones out. A.J. Dillon, a huge upgrade. Pairing up with Zeke, we've spoken about it, makes you a huge threat. Darren Waller, a massive week for you, not just point-wise, but more so the fact that you have Darren Waller performing like he should. This is another team that has two tight ends playing. I don't love it, but I understand it with Darrell Henderson on bye. Gaskin with a good week gives you stuff to think about. There's a lot to think about with this team as well. You're pretty strong from the top down. Mike Williams also has a big week. I think Team the Chairman is another one of those middle-of-the-road teams who can pull off an upset in the playoffs. So, Team the Chairman, I do have confidence in your team. Let's see how it pays off for you. TBD, the story of your season, Patrick Mahomes, another off week. Very, very frustrating. At 6-5, you're going to go as far as Mahomes takes you. And you can say the same thing for Saquon Barkley. Big name, not getting you the points you want. But the good news for you, and the good news for me who owns Saquon Barkley, is he came back and he clearly dominated touches while they were still competitive in this game. So you're getting your RB1 back, which is huge because Josh Jacobs, as I mentioned last week, is a very average option. At best, you're looking at an RB2. So you need Saquon to be that RB1. You need Mahomes to be that QB1. You need Keenan Allen to be a wide receiver 1. And now with your A.J. Brown acquisition, your team really takes the next step where you could get yourself another wide receiver 1. You have a tight end 1, of course. And these are what we mean by having studs. Those are 4 potential studs on your team. That gives me confidence, TBD, that you can compete for a title as well. You're another one of those 6-5 teams who can compete. There's a lot of guys just looking up at glory hole, just trying to get that chance. Just give me that one chance to face him in the playoffs. And, something's going to break. Something's going to break eventually. Glory hole probably still, of course, the favorite. Probably still nearing now 50% going to be the title winner, but that means there's still a more likely chance he doesn't win. And all these 6-5 teams, I think, could be the ones that dethrone them. The final game, Crucifier with a really tough loss. Wow, losing by 2 points. I mean, this is one of those ones that, could keep you up all night because this might be a season ender for you. And you lose against a guy who didn't even perform that well, so you really do have to blame yourself. You get a huge game from Aaron Rodgers. You get a very good game from Dalvin Cook. And the rest of your team, Golladay was a bad start. This Seattle Seahawks 2 wide receiver starting thing we did mention is not going to pay off. We begged you to make a trade, and yet again, an off week. Lockett does get you a pretty solid week with 20 points. Metcalf only 7 points. That offense is simply not producing enough for 2 wide receivers. 2 weeks ago, we said trade DK Metcalf. He has a bigger name. He'll get you value. Unfortunately, that was not a decision you made. But at the end of the day, the most annoying thing is that defense costs you. Buffalo Bills, -4. If you didn't start a defense, you win the game. That's very frustrating. For Crucifier, a lot of talent on your team. I'm not going to be the one to say your season's over because I think you could still make a comeback. You're getting Kupp back. You're getting Stafford back. This team still has the potential. While you didn't take any of my advice by trading one of those Seahawks wide receivers or trading one of your stud quarterbacks, I still think you could potentially make the playoffs. I mean, I personally I don't want to say rooting against it, but because I'm so stubborn, have mentioned so much about trading and you haven't been doing it, part of me is like, I guess it's not like the most earned playoff spot, but your team is solid enough where you kind of do deserve to make the playoffs. So, Live in La Vida Yoda, I'm happy you won because you started my boy Michael Carter, the Jets running back, who is just super talented, going to be fantasy relevant for years, but he gets injured. Unfortunately, it doesn't cost you. I hate when injuries cost a team. Fortunately, it did not for you. You do have a lot of talent on this team as well. Your wide receiver group is looking a little bit more iffy than I thought earlier in the season. Hollywood Brown on bye, injured. He's going to be coming back. Do you plug him in? Do you plug Elijah Moore, who had another big win in? You basically have 6 or 7 wide receiver 2s who have high upside and a low floor, and it's frustrating to figure out who you're going to start every week. Because of that, I don't have the most confidence in you winning the title. I like your team, but you have to perform. With this record, you're going to need 3 wins. You're not getting a bye. Can you get consistent enough production from your wide receivers? I don't think so. I think it's more of a roller coaster ride, and when that happens with a decent team, it's usually not going to be enough to win it all. So my prediction is potential playoff spot, but very low chance to win it all, the way I'm seeing your wide receiver right now. Okay, that's the week. See you next week. Let me know what you agree or disagree with. I'll talk to your boy about it.